delight to have one of our distinguished alumni, Brandie Phillips, who graduated from Central, grew up here in San Angelo, and has just graduated from college and is a gifted violinist. And it is our great pleasure to have her here visiting with us. I know so many in our community have loved her and have watched her, came to your recital a couple of weeks ago as I did, and sat there with smiles and tears of joy as we heard heavenly sounds that you produced. And certainly having Michael Snyder accompanying you was a absolute delight to those of us. But a packed house, and those of you in our audience who are used to listening on Channel 4 know that that is Brandie's music, and she's promised us some new music very soon. And people in our community have told me, Brandie, that they turn on Channel 4 and let it just play while they are busy doing things in their home or office, just to listen, to have your music as a background. And this community is so proud of you, and I've enjoyed getting to know your mom and dad, and now you. And so I want us to visit a little bit and give our audience, as well as myself, an insight into how you got to be so outstanding.
Okay.
And I would like for you to refresh maybe some folks' memory, as well as tell our audience that may not know you a little bit about your background, where you went to school, each of the schools, and then when did you pick up a musical instrument seriously?
Okay. Well, I started playing violin when I was 4, and that was kind of at the encouragement of my parents. Both of them are from musical backgrounds. My mother's mother, my grandmother, is a piano teacher, and I actually took piano with her for quite a while as well. So I started when I was 4, and just kept playing. I went to festivals in the state and as well as out of the state. And then I went first grade. I was at Crockett with Marjorie Howe. I loved her. Yes, loved her very much. And then I went to Bonham through 6th grade, and then I was at Glenn, and then I graduated from Central in 2004.
And you now tell us about your college.
Right out of high school, I went to school in Boca Raton, Florida, at the conservatory at the Lynn University. And then I transferred 2 years later. My teacher got a new job at Columbus State University in Georgia, and so I went with him. And that's where I graduated from. And
some people may not realize that a person who is majoring in an instrument or vocal performance, some kind of performance, often follow their mentor and their instructor, who are also gifted.
Right.
And so you went to college for a particular instructor.
Right. I met him in Poland at a competition, and then I had a lesson with him back in the States, and I really loved him. We worked well together. And it can be very hard to find a teacher who you work well with.
It has to be a fit.
Right. It really does. And so that's the one reason that I went to Florida. Was to study with him. It wasn't necessarily because I liked the school, which I did, but it had to do with liking the teacher and working well with him. And so when he got the job in Georgia, there was no question I was going to go with him.
Let's go back now just a little bit. I've heard stories that one of your parents or both once a week drove you long distances for private lessons. Tell us about that.
I guess it was out of 7th or 8th grade. I'm not quite sure when, but for, I guess, a good 5 or 6 years, either mom or dad or both of them would drive me to Austin every Saturday, which is a 3.5-hour drive, and I would have about a 2-hour lesson, usually an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then come home same day.
Because Austin has a lovely symphony, and there's some performers in Austin that people do come from all over the state to Houston, Dallas, Austin, where the main symphonies, the largest symphonies in our state are. Other kids were sleeping late on Saturday, and you were in a vehicle.
I was sleeping in a vehicle.
Oh, okay.
I still can't tell you the way to Austin because I was probably sleeping the whole time in the car.
But you still dedicated your life for 5 to 6 years when most young people don't have a clue what they're going to do. And
Right.
you were mature enough and understanding enough to know this is the price you pay for developing your skill.
Right.
How was it a temptation to ever say, I just want to be a regular kid?
Yeah, well, I mean, you were just saying all of that, that I was, mature enough to do that. But I think back then, I always was grateful to my parents because for them to give up every Saturday, I know they had to get tired. But there were times that I would have a friend who was having a party or, have friends that wanted to, hang out. And so at that age, I did want to do that. And it was a big temptation to do that. But at the same time, I knew what my goals were. And that was it. I just had to learn at an early age to sacrifice some things. And, in the end, I came out the better for it. So.
Or did you have any other friends or acquaintances during that period, junior high and high school, who had a goal and were giving that kind of effort toward it, no matter what the goal was?
Actually, the one that really catches my mind is Julie Ramirez, who is, a fabulous artist. Her artwork is everywhere, on billboards throughout San Angelo and other places as well. And I think, that she knew what it was like. My best friend is a tennis player, was on the, central tennis team. And, any sport in the district, they sacrifice a lot of time for practices and meets and stuff. So all my friends, I was surrounded by friends who understood and supported me and encouraged me. So I was very lucky.
Well, how does a 4-year-old know which instrument?
I probably didn't know the answer. I vaguely remember wanting to play cello. Or my mom wanted me to play cello. I vaguely remember that it was me who wanted to play cello. But something about, I was too small and the instrument was too big. They handed me a violin and I went to violin lesson and that was it. That's what I started on. And then I picked up piano. And then later on I had to decide, I was spending 3 to 4 hours on both a day. Mm-hmm. And when you're in junior high, that gets...
impossible.
Exactly. And then for me to try to balance homework and even a little bit of a social life, I had to decide. And just the violin, it's, my first love. So that was my decision.
Well, you don't know this, not many people do. My background was a little bit similar. My parents required each of us to play 2 instruments. One had to be piano, and we could choose. And as a very young girl, I wanted cello, and my father said, I can't see you dragging that. So my second choice actually was violin, and I played both the piano and violin. And you're right, the juggling, practicing in 2 instruments is very, very difficult. Yeah, and I did it through high school, but when I got to college, I went piano and stopped with violin. And I don't have regrets. I was a part of the city where I lived in our nation's largest cities, and there was always a symphony. My parents were patrons of the symphony, and so we had where I went to high school, a junior symphony, and I was a violinist in that. So I have a particular love for stringed instruments. Yeah. My daddy was a wind instrument player, as your father is, so that's another, and my parents drove me to private lessons to a college as well. So we have that similarity. Talk to us about your goals now that you have, in the last month, graduated. I know them, but tell them where you're going to be living and what you hope to be doing in the fall.
Well, I will be living in Dallas. I decided to move back to Texas, a little closer to home. I have a very big family, so 4 years away was enough time for me to, gain my independence and figure out, a lot about myself. But it's time to come home and, be with my family. But I'm going to be in Dallas, and I'll be going to SMU for graduate school to get my master's in violin performance.
And once again, there's a very outstanding performer instructor that has drawn you to SMU, not just because it's an outstanding university.
Right.
And who is that, and how do you know that person?
Well, there are two. The main one that I'm really going for is Gary Levinson, who is with the Dallas Symphony. He was formerly with the New York Philharmonic. So I've been working with him a year, and he's an amazing teacher. Every lesson I go to, I come out a completely different player, thinking about music differently. So it's been amazing. And the other one that I will be working with a lot is Chi-Young Kim, who is a solo performing artist. She's quite famous, actually, a very prominent musician right now. She's from Korea, but she's now the artist in residence at SMU. So.
Now, you also hope to become a part of a professional group, isn't that right?
Yeah, my main goal is to be, well, hopefully with the Dallas Symphony, but, a symphony of some sort, hopefully in a big city, but Dallas is what I'm aiming for. Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah. And that's only, Dallas is about 4 hours?
Downtown Dallas, I think, is 4.5 hours.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back a ways. Who has had a profound impact on you? It can be more than one person.
Definitely my mom and dad, and that might be a cliche answer, but, we talked about how they would drive me to Austin for...
and sacrifice.
For lessons. Yeah, and I can think about, my friends and, other people I know, and I don't know a lot of parents that would do that every weekend for that long. And so they sacrificed a lot. They bought me my violin. They've, paid for my summer camps. And they've just been very supportive throughout, my whole entire musical career and, even before that. But definitely my parents, my grandmother, who was my piano teacher and theory teacher for a long time, music theory, had a profound influence on, what I know now, my knowledge and my passion, and just had a big impact on my musical background. And I think those are the three people that really have influenced me the most.
You have a delightful disposition, and which is so enjoyable for those of us who are new to get to know you, and those of you who've known you for a while. That's what a lot of people say about you, Brandy. And sometimes when a person is very, very focused, as you have had to be, they may not have as good a people skills as you do, and of course your parents have good people skills as well, and your grandmother. Do you have other goals besides finishing your graduate degree or degrees, becoming a part of a major symphony? Any other goals?
Yeah, well, I have, the goal of one day, finding someone and getting married and having kids and, raising a family. But just being happy and content where I am, and that, I think, would make everything complete. So.
Well, most young people your age, you have been so goal-oriented. You deserve the thing which you have just said. You are going to be a performer, and just because now you've gotten one degree, you can't just cut back. I've heard stories of Van Cliburn from the musical field, Nolan Ryan from athletics, sports, who after both of these men have arrived in their field, still are practicing hours a day.
Right.
Talk to us about that.
Well, through high school, I would practice 4 to 5 hours a day. And once I hit college, I had a bigger class load and a lot more homework. So on a good day, when I'm not busy, I'll get 4 hours in. Sometimes less. It really is more about quality of the practice rather than quantity, definitely. And a lot of that is, just how I feel, mentally and physically. I don't want to burn myself out, which happens very easily to a lot of musicians, especially physically. So I try to balance my practicing with, learning. And I, do study. I love science, biology especially. Love science, and I love languages, so especially Spanish. So I try to balance practicing with, other things that I like to study, and, I'm a very social person, so I have to have time with my friends, and, if everything is balanced out right, then, I can definitely tell in my playing when, I'm balanced, and so it's important.
People in regular jobs, if there is such a thing, are at work 8 to 5 or so. That is not the case with a performer. You would put in many weeks, especially during a symphony season or during a school year when you're in school, many hours a day between studying and practicing and performing. Plus, performing is a weekend, often is a weekend. So you're a 7-day-a-weeker, and you must balance.
Right. Well, at the professional level, there's usually a different concert with different repertoire every weekend. And so I think the general schedule with the professional ensemble is you get like 1 day a week off, say Monday, and then you'll have, 3-hour rehearsals several days a week. And then the weekends, we're night owls. We work at night, we practice at nights, or individually, we practice at night. And that's another thing is during the day when we're not in rehearsals together, we spend a lot of time individually practicing parts and technique and keeping up, the different techniques that we have to be able to play these kinds of music. And so, and a lot of performers also teach privately.
Absolutely. Most do on the a lot do on the college level.
Definitely. So there's some busy days, and then there's a lot of time where you can take off to really hone in on things that you want to learn, and whether it be music or other interests. So I'm excited about that.
Who is the best violinist in the world right now?
Right. Oh, that's a very subjective question. I love Hilary Hahn. I think Hilary Hahn, her technique, her musicality is amazing. She's a female, which is exciting because you hear about all of the past greats in violin, and they're all male. So I think it's exciting that we have a female now who is talented. She's based out of Philadelphia, I want to say. She attended the Curtis Institute of Music. She's quite young. She's a couple years older than me. But definitely, if you don't know of her recordings are amazing. And so a lot of violinists now would say that she's probably the best one right now.
And right now, what are the top 2 symphonies in the world?
Oh, that's also a tough one. In the world?
In the world.
Probably, I don't know, Berlin or Vienna, New York. I don't think there's top 2. I think you can just name, just have a list of the top orchestras. Because it also moves around depending on conductors and who's playing. And I don't know.
I think, though, I enjoy a great conductor.
Oh, me too. My dad's a great conductor.
Your dad is a great conductor.
Well,
he certainly is.
Yeah.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you in San Angelo for these days. We will continue to have your music on Channel 4.
And I'll get you a new recording.
And we will await that with great excitement. And the next time, we need you to bring your instrument and play us just a few bars of something beautiful.
Definitely.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you.
We love your music.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.